have my box here. I've had a damp paper towel over it, trying to soften it up a little bit more. And, oh, and I want to put some feet on my berry bowl. I'm going to get that clay a little wet. My scraps here are drying out quite quickly. It's just going to wrap that in some wet paper for a while, see if it softens up. So my box here, I'm not sure if this is going to work. I've never done it on a hand-built project, but I started a little bit. I think it'll work. So if you remember when I was throwing a few weeks ago and I held the chopstick next to the box and was pressing it in to make the indent for the lid. So I'm going to try doing that manually on here. Anything will work. Anything kind of squarish. I don't want it round, so I'm not going to use the stick here, but I want something squarish. This would work. A ruler would work, probably a wooden ruler. My plastic one's really thin. Maybe you'd have a thicker one. So anything you have that you can kind of take and press it in. We don't want to be cutting the clay away, and it's probably going to be a little messy at first, but I want to push that in, and I want to do it, feels weird to do it that way. Okay, I want to do it all the way around and keeping it fairly level. So I might want to draw my line first, make sure it's going to line up before I commit too much to the pressing. And if you remember, if you saw that demo, it's creating the flange, so this part needs to go down a little bit more, for either the lid to go down in or for the lid to come over top. That'll make more sense when we cut it open. So I'm going to keep scoring this, pressing that clay in. So there's air trapped in here, which helps it keep its form, but is also pushing against me. So I've got to kind of redistribute the air in there. Not sure if I'll be able to cut this open tonight or not. Getting those corners in, and just like the throne one, it'll need a little cleaning up and attention, but this at least gets it going, and it's easier than trying to build the flange later. Not sure if this would be easier if I cut it open and got the air out or not. And then you have to decide if you want that pressed in part to be part of the lid that's going to sink down in, or part of the wall that's going to go under the lid. So if the lid's going to be kind of a cap, I think because the lid is narrower, I'm going to make the flange part of the lid so it will sink down in. Since the wall is tapered this way, I think that will. So round and round. And I think this is stiff enough to cut open. This side could maybe use. I am kind of putting a bit of pressure on there as well to hold that air and hold the form. All right, so now I'm going to take my blade and I'm going to cut. So this is the top, the lid. I'm going to cut at the base of the mark I made. Now, if I want to be really exact, I could even measure, probably should have done this sooner, 7.5 centimeters right to there. Make sure I'm going to be fairly level. Oops, this side seems a little low. So I may try to move this one up a little bit. Okay. And cutting it open, I can use this tool. I can use my fettling knife. This blade's a little thicker, so I think I will use this one. And I think I'll start in the center. I'm gonna puncture it. And cut through. If your clay is fairly thick, you could make a few passes before you commit. Cut a few times. You want to avoid this, whoops, you want to avoid that too. You want to avoid lots of sawing back and forth because that makes more of a jagged edge. If you can cut it nice and smoothly, it gives you a nicer finish. Hold that on, sorry, that's making a shadow. Okay, so there's my bottom, my top. Got a bit of flange there, it kind of worked. It's gonna need a little cleaning up. Like always, everything always needs some cleaning up. Whoops. And pushing out. Might need to pull this back out a little bit to let that flange go down inside. And might need to just compress this a little bit. Once it softens, once it stiffens up, I can trim a little bit more off of there as well if I need it. But eventually it will go down in there. Just needs a little work. If you took home some of those little carving tools, this would be a good time to use them. I'll see if I can find mine. All right, this will work a little better. So if I hold it up there, trim it away a bit, I'm also pushing it a little bit. Not trying to take too much at once. A little crack in the corner. Still a little wet. You may need to let that stiffen up a little bit. Having that edge that I made right here from pushing it in makes it easier to carve this. So I think it will have to sit for a little while.